game at this tournament. I think you keep up that bot side focus in your bans. You do not want to let Keria get those AD carries.
I do think some of the success that we've seen against T1 though has been focusing him with picks like the Azir being gone. So I do agree the Senna Ashe that we've already seen gone, but now do we get that priority towards Faker, or are we just going to go back to your stock standard and get rid of the Lucian?
And you can see T1 respecting the last time they met up against G2. The Rek'Sai and the Zac were key proponents of how G2 took their first game in that series. Tristana as well banned away from caps.
Yeah, the only thing I might have an idea to change would be the Rek'Sai part for like the Poppy from T1, but we'll see if that actually ends up punishing them. Obviously, Mickey was extremely good on the Poppy, and the analyst was talking about it being a 3-wave flex pick. But let's get into it because the Lucian does follow. So you're thinking Kalista right now. You're thinking Kalista.
I'm actually thinking Talia, because G2 will take either Kalista or the Varus, and then T1 can get the other side of that matchup. If you take Kalista here, Orianna instead. Still a mid laner though for Faker.
But this was the thing. This was the pick that Cap showed up time and time again against Faker, getting those solo kills on him, even out playing in the 1v2. So trying to deny that comfort away from Caps. But it does mean you can take something like the Varus here, forehand Sam in that bottom side, or do they try and go for something, as you say, like the Talia, or a jungle priority here for Yike?
A lot of different options for G2, both the most powerful AD carries on the patch left open, Kalista and Varus. We've seen Handsama's Draven, he beat Jackie Love on it.
That's why they didn't slam the Kalista for sure, because Draven is still up, and they let it through. The last series, they permabanned the Draven, but they dropped that one. So Hansama here, going to be put in a very commanding position. You think about focusing bottom lane already with the later picks, as far as jungle as well, clearing down towards there. Let's see. What are they going to pair this one with? Some Poppy action. There it is.
But you also keep the flex open, right? So if you end up going into the Kalista, you kind of get double hit on the opposite side thanks to G2. And you can always move the Poppy into jungle if you want to, but they're going to go for it anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that Poppy go to Mickey in the bottom side.
Yeah, I mean, playing Kalista Renata into Draven plus Poppy for later does seem scary, but they get the Renata with it. That is going to be better. Maybe a lane swap as well.
Maybe spelling that G2 want to focus around this bot lane early as well. It's what they did against top esports. It can be effective if you put Guma behind, who has been T1's most consistent and probably best player at this MSI. LeBlanc, though, locked in for caps.
Shouts out to Humanoid as well. Yeah. He was popping off on LeBlanc early in the tournament. Caps, of course, as well, extremely good at it and used it quite well.
Also something that has a huge amount of playmaking, and that kind of was where Caps differentiate himself against Faker in the last series. So we'll have to see if he can try and get that as well. But I imagine now as we start to move in towards the second half of this draft, it is going to be the top side focus here from G2. Is it a jungle focus coming through from T1, especially seeing as they're going to be picking on that second rotation?
I mean, jungle 2v2, if Yike can get his hands on something that is early and aggressive and skirmish as well, LeBlanc plus a Lee Sin, so powerful in the early game.
Yeah, Lee Sin and Vi are both up right now. Those both are pretty good kill combinations with a LeBlanc. Xin Zhao even can be quite good with it, because the LeBlanc can early flash and guarantee the chain, and then you get the dive. But
T1 are just so used to playing against Genji, they banned out the Nidalee. I'll have a look back, but I don't think Yike has really ever pulled out the Nidalee.
Nidalee also seems like such a worse pairing with LeBlanc than all those AD ones we were mentioning.
Yeah, so kind of surprised to see that, but they must feel like something is cooking, and it always is G2 who are willing to go into the kitchen and see what they can bring out. But I think you're still leaving a lot of these, as Medic was highlighting, early aggressive junglers up and available. So you can go for a Lee Sin, a Viego, with his Rek'Sai taken away, may even go back towards something like the Jarvan as well here.
So Yike has played Nidalee 4 times, 3 times at MSI last year and 1 time in the ERL. So he has played it, but not for a year. It's not something we know him for at all. Usually the Lilia, the Bel'Veth, his sort of more pocket picks. There's the Lee Sin banned away as well, though, talking about that early skirmishing prowess. The Xin taken away by G2. Likely a jungle pick here, leave top for last, give Broken Blade that counter matchup.
Yeah, and I like that idea, especially when BB has been so good in picking up like the Yasuos and these kind of things into a Twisted Fate that Zeus might bring out. But I wouldn't be surprised to see potential for something like a Jarvan or Viego here, just to try and set up for that early skirmish. But it does mean you're kind of relying on on BB then to be a lot of your engage tool. This would be a callback though to, oh my god, this was Yike's pick coming into the LEC. He made his name on it in the LFL and was such a monster on this pick, but we saw it from Canyon as a counter pick into the Xin Zhao. But with the Xin Zhao being banned away, what did T1 want to go for?
Well, the hovers right now, I think, are both extremely likely. I like the Vi for Guaranteed with Orianna, but Sejuani is a very tanky, and it is non-committal engage, so you're really deciding, do you want the delivery for the Orianna Shockwave to be guaranteed with the Vi, or do you want the non-committal, safer frontline there in the Sejuani, and the better pairing with the melee here, with the Camille coming in.
It also gives you backline threat with the Orianna ball, right? Camille can just hookshot, wall dive that onto the backline. T1, a very standard composition from them. They have good team fight. They've got good backline threat with the combination of the Glacial Prison and the Hextech Ultimatum coming out of the Camille. G2, though, now looking at the Jax.
Yeah, Jax is just a great matchup into the Camille. Very much a skill matchup, and this will be a real test for Broken Blade in that top side. But a ton of 1-3-1 and just sheer assassination potential if you try to walk into your jungle against what G2 have here. So this is very much going to be a case of G2 trying to get the game going early in their favor and hoping that T1 can't take over in those early skirmishes.
Jax is so good into Camille. Oh, we've got to keep our eyes open for some lane swap wards as well, boys. That matchup definitely is a very, very painful. Counter-Strike obviously shuts down so much of Camille, but also the being able to jump inside the W trades, inside the tactical sweep, so good for lane phase.
I will say, though, we talked a lot on the desk about the inventiveness in draft from G2, the differences they can bring out. Caps hasn't played that much LeBlanc this year, but it is his most played across the course of his career. The last time we saw BB on Jax, we saw him twice this year, but really the majority of his games were played last year. And although Yike is 17-2 on Kha'Zix, you have to go all the way back to MSI last year for the last time he played that as well. So there's just a lot of inventiveness, a lot of picks perhaps that T1 wouldn't have been expecting as we see Albon from G2 on our screens.
Yeah, I think a huge amount of this is G2 slightly going back to comforts from a career perspective, right? But I do think this is also a little bit of a test because this is a very different draft from what we would traditionally expect from G2. It's a draft that wants to try and play 1-3-1, a draft that wants to try and play for sides and just getting map control early, which is something where T1 have struggled in the early stages in those early skirmishes. We saw it a lot against TL, so it feels like coming into this, G2 want to try and prioritize punishing that.
Yeah, definitely so. And I love this trend, especially for the junglers. These carry junglers that know they want to carry in their hearts, like Canyon, like Yike here, being able to slam carries into Sejuani's, into the Maokai's, into all these tank junglers that people have been rushing. And this one, even slammed blind. All right.
G2, it's a rematch 5 years in the making for T1. Just last week, they won this matchup. The question is, can G2 come out all guns firing today, or will it once again be the Titans that are T1 raising the victory flag? An elimination series here. Of course, LCK won't be knocked out entirely. Gen.G already into the finals, already guaranteeing their region a 4th seed at Worlds, perhaps guaranteeing themselves a spot at Worlds if they win MSI. For G2, the last hope not only of EU, but also of the West, as has been the case so many times in the past.
Nothing too crazy to kick things off here, though. You see everyone kind of fanning out defensively, making sure that they're not getting any sort of deep vision or anything.
This is the loudest that I've heard the crowd. This is getting insane already, and we haven't even spawned minions in game number 1 of this rematch. So much going into this one.
Minions have spawned.
Looks like T1 might be the ones initiating a lane swap. Going to step in here. Yike on his lonesome. Does have the protection of Broken Blade in a moment. Yike now sees Oner. Oner, you really don't want to take Arctic Assault first. You can see he hasn't leveled anything up in your bottom left corner. Broken Blade's going to react to this. Cap's still in the mid lane.
So I've learned most of what I know about Camille matchups from a certain challenger European streamer, and he makes videos on every single Camille matchup, and the Jax one just says ban Jax.
Okay.
do not play this matchup because the Counter-Strike is so good and because of the ability to move inside the tactical sweep. And so T1, they are completing their lane swap. They successfully get their invade off with no bloodshed here. So it is going to be just the split map, just the kind of normal lane swap here as G2 are answering and rotating Broken Blade down to the other side.
Yeah, Yike just going to be able to pick up the jungles on the bottom side. Didn't take his wolves or his Grom, so instead just going to try and Philly clear out this bottom side. Zeus in the mid lane though, and Caps did just use distortion.
Jumps forward. Broken Blade, they saw him on a ward. It has expired. You can see the little bit of ruin there. in the bush, so they don't know if Broken Blade is still here, but they can assume that he's waiting around the corner. Hansama and Mickey going through that bot lane tower will pick up the first place of the game.
This does get you out of the unfavorable matchup with the Camille, but I'm curious how this is going to end up panning out, because I think there is a world where Yike is able to get some good vision down in this bottom side jungle and look for invades off of Hansam and Mickey having the push on bottom side if they want to try and continue up with this. So that could lend itself to some aggression, but BB still hovering around this mid lane. Only level 1 still, hasn't been able to do much.
Counter-Strike first, because you're looking for the chains into Counter-Strike Flash onto Faker, but he steps away, Electrocute procs on him, down to about 210 HP.
And the focus of so many teams against T1 has been towards the mid lane. The feeling of if you can get Faker under pressure, if you can get Faker behind, then the shot calling for the team does suffer. But no play there, as Broken Blade was watching and waiting, but Faker's able to back off.
So it will be the bottom lane taking the hits so Zeus can kind of thrive in the matchup. He is still a little bit behind in experience, but when you look bot lane, they did have to drop a full wave. You can see exactly 6 CS as the difference for Hansama, and I think this is where we're going to see if Hansama and Mickey are able to punish that little bit of an advantage that they have, or whether it is going to be Zeus at least benefiting from the fact that he got that little bit of time away from the matchup. But it hasn't been a huge amount of time, and BB still has the level advantage.
The wave wasn't in a great spot for Zeus, just outside of tower range. The reinforcing wave will push it towards him. You can see he can catch this a little bit deeper, but Broken Blade winning out on the early trades. They're getting his grass box off. Yike secures T1's bottom side jungle as Faker and Caps continue to trade in mid.
Of course, there's so much hype around Camille pick as well coming into this tournament because of the buffs to the Q as well as the W. So we shall see. We've had a lot of successful Camille's already, and Zeus was definitely one of them as well, as he tries to scale into the later stages of the game. But now we just have junglers retaking on their other sides as well. Oner does pass through the old control ward, though.
Let's stand one of his own, but Caps will be very aware that Oner is waiting around the corner. Zeus forced back, just trying to keep the wave away from his turret, but the cannon minion now under the tower means BB has the opportunity to back. No TP on him. He TP'd up to the top lane tower when the lane swaps were happening.
One of the biggest trends I noticed too in going back and reviewing the previous T1 G2 series is the caution that you need to take when retaking the side of your map that you just left. There were so many plays where T1 had left wards on G2's side, and G2 then it was either Yike or Mickey going over those wards for an attempted play, and T1 were able to use that information to counter their play and turn that one around. So definitely keeping track of all these straggling wards there. This time around, it was G2 with the extra control ward behind the red buff that's on, and it will probably be those objectives traded.
Yike went for a very late reset though, completely cleaned out his topside jungle, so there's nothing really on the top side apart from Void Grubs. He wants to come back into his bottom side, so it feels like a bit of a weird one. It looks like they want to try and contest for Dragon, but they're already too late.
Oner can always just jump out of the back of the pit here, so Keria and Gumayusi rightly abandon him to smite away the Drake. T1 on the board with the first Dragon of the series, a mountain in their name.
Yeah, and you can tell with the pings that are going down that T1 realized that Yike is more than likely going to be moving into his bottom side, but he's actually going to start moving up towards his top side to look for the Void Grub spawn in just a couple of seconds. Going to take a quick pit stop at mid, but I think it's more to ensure Caps can shove this out and get a reset for himself rather than actually set up anything.
See, bot lane's not resetting either, so neither of the supports on their way for a fight around the Grubs, which will be up in about 8 seconds' time. Oner is pathing towards his top side. I wonder if he'll want a little piece of this action.
Looks like he's going to continue clearing his side camps. Now, the extra experience that you do get off of Grubs is also really, really nice for Kha'Zix specifically, because Kha'Zix needs the level 6, needs the ultimate to be able to go put pressure on Orianna. The LeBlanc-Orianna matchup really needs some extra pressure on the Orianna applied by teammates coming to give value to your kill threat on the champion. And so once Kha'Zix gets level 6, I would not be surprised if we saw Yike trying to stealth into mid lane, outside of the brush. Even with the brushes moved back, you can still do it, and then go for one of those plays with Caps to try and force a flash, and then repeat the extra focus on the Ori early on Faker.
Mickey backing in front of Keria, will put some damage down. No handshake for Keria right now, just used it. 7 seconds before that cooldown's back up. And Mickey uses the steadfast presence movement speed to get his way out of the tri-bush.
Nice trade, but it does look like we're actually getting another lane swap going through from G2. Hansam is moving up towards his top side. You're having Broken Blade move his way down to the bottom half of the map. I'm surprised to see it, to be perfectly honest, because I did think they'd want to try and keep the matchup with Broken Blade there, but maybe they just feel like with the Sheen proc coming through from Zeus, this isn't the best time to have them in the 1v1, so sending Hansam up instead now to collect this big wave.
I wonder if, well, you know, Zeus just hit 6. Oner was on the top side of the map. There was a threat of a dive on Broken Blade, who was only level 5. With Mickey now coming in to support, maybe it dissuades T1 from going for it because you think the support is there. But overall, it's now BB in the bot lane, as you say, G2 reassigning their lanes. We'll see if T1 do the same after they get this push out. In fact, we can kind of see it already. Zeus working his way down towards the bottom lane.
Caps working away at his first turret plate. So very minor gold lead achieved for him on the LeBlanc. Such a scary, scary champion to have some money early on into the game. And we do have the level 6s for those junglers, so I'm definitely looking for some mid lane spicy trades.
We talked a lot in draft about the explosiveness of G2. They have a lot of burst damage. We haven't really seen that come to effect yet. Is it just a wait for level 6, wait for your ultimate sort of play?
Kha'Zix specifically is definitely a nicely scaling jungler. One of those assassins needs to get the lethality first, so on first rated Dirk, have the possibility on going to try and burn some extra summoner spells, but of course the lane swap also slowing down the pace of the game for us.
See, I wasn't sure if they were trying to get Mickey to interact with the lanes by having Hansama push in top and then maybe come for the play in mid, but the vision already set up. But BB
Zeus flashes, doesn't get the knock-up. Oner on his way in as well. BB at the edge of the hexagon, maiden caught with the permafrost. Glacial Prison's gonna lock him down as well. And burst blood to Oner.
Oner with the clean gank here. Comes through lane on the Sejuani. Jungle difference turns the matchup, and that is gonna be huge.
Faker's coming across. Caps move quickly enough. Yikes now on the wrong side of this wall. Lands the smite, can try and jump. Trying to trade back onto Faker, uses the flash. Whirling death as well by Hansama invested.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that they could get out, but good response from T1. They get the play on bot side and stop any sort of real cross map. Yes, you get the blue buff, but Bernie Yikes flash is huge for a Kha'Zix.
T1 coming into this series, so much pressure on their shoulders. You saw how hard they took their previous loss, and coming out very calm in the opening and collected in their play. And Oner comes for a lane gank. Even though Zeus wasn't able to get the stun there, is able to get the ultimate, and ultimate place, stacking up the Sejuani stuns into the Sejuani ultimate. That champion brings so much CC. That synergy with melee champions is always the highlight.
Power of the double melee there, costing Broken Blade his life, and we wondered if T1 would have been able to clean up their early game. It's where they've struggled so much throughout the tournament. This is very clean. 400 gold lead. They have a Mountain Drake. They can stop the next Grubs if they want to make sure G2 don't get to 4. Next Dragon spawns in 20 seconds, and they already have their bot lane in the bot lane, where you want them to be if you're going to play around a Dragon.
And if you want to... Oh, hang on. Broken Blade might be trouble here.
Doesn't have a ward. He's just going to walk away. Counter-Strike goes down. Gumayusi continues to put the spears in his back.
I was going to say, G2 haven't really blown open the game in the way I feel like they need to. Yes, Broken Blade is getting small advantages, but it's nothing to read right home of it. Zeus still going to feel it.
No flash, knocked into the wall. No Hexagolden maiden for him either. Mickey tanking, slowed down, but the steadfast presence is enough to keep him alive. Yike now on the board for G2.
Great steadfast presence from Mickey. Zeus hoping that maybe he could get something, but having burnt that flash already, there was no way he's going to get onto the poppy. Now Caps trading heavily against Faker. Just going to back away for the moment, though.
And that could be 6 Void Grubs. That certainly will be 6 Void Grubs for G2. Try and help out with their pushing for the Jacks. Meanwhile, bottom side, T1 bring everybody over to help out on the push. Still going to be G2 cashing in on the first turret bonus, though.
Whirling Death coming across as well to clear out the wave means that T1 can't get as many minions to die to this tower. Broken Blade was in the vicinity. He's just met up against Oner. He needs to jump away. You can see Mickey trying to join the fray. Oner dashes in. Broken Blade has the Grandmaster's Knight in the counter-strike, but doesn't land the stun. Immediately they dive onto Gumayusi. The hostile takeover. Keeper's Verdict will knock back 2. Glacial Prison not enough to lock down BB, and G2 able to survive the die.
Yeah, good defense here. G2, they use the Draven ultimate, and then they also send Mickey to come out and stop this pushing from T1. They're getting themselves a very nice gold lead in addition to the 6 Grubs. The only thing with the T1 for their advantage is the Dragons.
Hansama's on the way bot side, though, which means the T1 have to back off, which means you've just bought an Essence Reaver and a BF Sword, and you're more than likely going to get some more turret plates on the bottom side for Hansama off the play.
And you have Yike with the ability to clear out all the wards here with the Umbral Glaive getting back out on Kha'Zix, clearing out some of this vision, trying to set up those plays to really, really cash in.
And if you wonder why teams lane swap, I think here is a great example. G2 got 5 turret plates in the top lane, are likely to get 5 in the bot lane, have already picked up, well, about to pick up 2 in the mid lane. Compare that to what T1 have been able to manage. They have 1 in mid, 1 in top, and 2 in bot lane. They just haven't got all of that early gold in the same way that G2 have, which is why, even though the scores are even though it's 1-1, G2 have this 1,000 gold lead.
And the thing is, you have to drop a wave on T1's side if you want to match back into the 2v2. Because you need to go, oh, we are second behind the play. We now need to get somewhere else, and you always have to drop. Boy, hang on.
Caps looks for Faker. Shockwave doesn't land. Caps. Quick enough reactions to back out. Oner was on his way. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, the tower is going to be felled by G2. Summer continues to extend his gold lead, about 1.5k ahead now.
And he still hasn't cashed in.
Yeah.
He's still sitting on a ton of money. That could be a big potential there. So I think T1, they need to try and get down into this bot lane and turn that around. But it's been very, very difficult. Caps has been able to get a good amount of pressure mid. And
Zeus has the Hexagol ultimatum. Caps flashes, but he can't get away. The ultimatum puts him in his place as Zeus gets his first kill of the game.
Zeus on this Camille, coming to try and keep Caps in check. Despite that, though, G2 with the hefty gold lead, and you mentioned the stacks, is actually a big benefit right now because it also helps out with the possibility for executing. We'll see if they can actually pull it off, though. They sent him mid. Poppy.
It's gonna get the knockback onto Gumayusi. No stun to follow up, though. Keria still there. The Whirling Death going wide. Summer unable to cash in yet. For T1 now, though, the question is, how do you play around these next objectives? Are you looking to fight the Rift Herald?
It's very hard to. You just had to send mid lane packing. Gumayusi's too low to contest. Keria will get some of the healing here, but you've still got a massive Draven who is more than willing to fight, and G2 didn't really use anything. They've even got Broken Blade in position. So right now, there's little that T1 can do to contest this Herald take.
Well, they're going to try and face check here and move in for some wards at the very least as Oner leads the way.
I think the important thing with this is G2 could look for it, but as soon as Faker went missing out of the bot side, they don't know if Faker's TPing in and going to respond to a play. Now T1 will start it. Caps is already moving up, doesn't have the TP yet, nor does Faker, but it looks like it's going to be a 5v4.
Certainly does. Yike in the wings here on Kha'Zix. Could slip in for a steal. Mickey as well, ultimate.
Keeper's verdict only onto Keria. No hostile takeover for T1. They begin to back away. Step house present going in as Mickey's locked up. Knocks Zeus back. Mickey already deleted. The counter strike on the back line though as Caps jumps in. Shockwave only hitting onto Broken Blade. Summer beginning to open up. Summer gets 1,200 gold out of that, but T1 can still win the fight. Yike has to flash away. The ignite is ticking and will take him out. Faker falls to Caps, and Zeus and Summer are trading, and Zeus takes the win. Adapted defenses sends Summer to an early grave. Caps looking for more though. Keria low, no mana for him. Caps continues to chase. Keria does have the red buff, can get a slow onto Caps, but you really can't slow the LeBlanc that much. I think Caps should be able to chase him down here, just needs the chains to land. Keria flashes away, and Caps, with a sigil of malice, sends him into the dirt.
Massive play from Caps.
Zeus so full HP though. Caps tries to get away, the ultimatum marks the spot of his gravestone as Zeus gets his second.
They spent so much time dodging back and forth down there that Zeus was able to teleport back in on the Camille and get one back. This series is already delivering with the combat. Let's take another look at how it started out, because Mickey actually went down really early, even though he does get his ultimate onto Keria there at the beginning for the temporary numbers advantage. He then got it just blown up immediately. Guma's able to get the kill, but Caps puts so much pressure onto Guma, gets the pop onto him as you get that cash in, that big execute we are looking for.
And big ultimate from Keria as well. It takes Hansama to the fight because he's running away from the hostile takeover, so he doesn't have to deal the damage. And then here, the flash into the bush was so close to being enough, but just not quite. But now we're back into it. Dragon is spawned. Zeus still on the top side. Caps does have the TP to come into this fight, but does he really have anywhere to get involved with right now?
Zeus doesn't have his TP. He's in the mid lane. No Ravenous Hydra for him yet. Just got the Tiamat alongside that Trinity Force.
Yeah, talking about items, I think you need to talk about the Infinity Edge that was picked up by Hansama after that cash in. He is 2 items, huge Draven, but he's mid, so they're not going to fight it. It doesn't look like. Where if Hans is not coming, they are not going to go.
G2 did TP BB into that bottom side, I think, to try and get their waves in order, but with Zeus being able to get the top tower while we're looking at the replay and push out, there's just too many waves that aren't in favor of G2, so they decide not to fight, giving a third dragon now over to T1.
It's the Chemtech Soul on the horizon for T1. not the most powerful, but still, with the fights as close as they are, can do a huge amount of work for you.
I think that T1 are trying to look at a little bit later when they have the possibilities of Zeus plus Faker Shockwave killing Hansama. Because Hansama right now is the gold lead. He is the G2 power spike with his IE plus Essence Reaver. So you have to be very, very careful. He does not have his flash right now, so the rest of G2 playing around him, using that Herald mid, making sure that he has a body blocker. Mickey's job here of steadfast presence, making sure that Zeus cannot get in there with a hook shot and a flash onto Hansama is the #1 most important thing.
And that's why tempo is going to be so important. If you are able to sneak Zeus out of a lane like now where there's no threat onto the T1 towers, you can go for Hansama and immediately just blow up in this game. But as long as you can keep control of side lanes for G2, they are safe to play off of mid.
And this is where Zeus thrives. He isn't really a tank player. He can do it, but when you give him a 2,000 gold lead in the mid game, that is where Zeus wins you games. That's what T1 have relied on so many times in the past. And now you can see Broken Blade really can't answer the pressure this Camille's putting down, especially with Oner shadowing. Broken Blade will give this tower up for dust, knowing that Oner's in the area, won't step any further forward, and it's another turret to T1.
T1 will have to quickly get out of there. You can see G2 starting to make their way down, though. They do have control over mid, and this is where a lot of it's going to be on Mickey trying to help out in keeping those side lanes in check.
What a first game, guys.
I know.
When it was 19 minutes in, it's 7-4. 1,000 gold between the two teams. T1 trying to crack through this mid lane, but they don't have the wave to do so right now.
It does feel like the further you go, though, that it is going to get to a stage where T1 just come alive in these team fights. When you look at this next dragon coming up, you're going to hit a second item for Faker, Gumayusi going to hit his second item. I think that's really where T1 are going to thrive.
I definitely agree. And so for G2 to try and stop that, they need to get some assassinations. They drafted Kha'Zix and LeBlanc. Two champions that thrive when you have vision control, that need to have opportunities to get chunk damage onto members of T1 before T1 are set up.
G2 have been playing predominantly around this top side as Yike jumps in, Edge of Night, Shield, Glacial Prism, down TP. Hot Dog Takeover is going to land onto Captain, some able to dodge away from it, but already Yike has fallen as T1 begin to open up in the fight. Broken Blade TPing in. They will meet immediately jumping onto Zeus. They'll get the shutdown. Gumayusi, though, is dancing and dipping his way around the fight. Hansama down, Yike down. Caps having to retreat, dashing away, flashing away, but can he escape the T1 oncoming storm? The answer, EU, I'm afraid, is no. As T1 wipe away G2.
T1 completely split up G2. Yike falls too quickly, and then they try to protect the president, but there's just assassination potential on all sides for T1.
That Gromp is not the gank that you wanted. No. That is not the assassination that you wanted, but he goes for it, and he did get the Gromp, but then he immediately gets stunned up. Faker and Oner finish off the Kha'Zix on the top side, and then G2 are committing, and they try and back him up. They try and get in there, but Hansama's so deep that he trades on the Camille, and it's T1 finishing up with the extra chase down kills.
And again now it's going to be T1 back out on the map first, getting to push out those waves, and Dragon is only just a few minutes away. This really feels like T1 taking control of this first game and making sure that it's impossible for G2 to really fight back.
Hey man, I've been there before. I got that jungle need, you know, steal away every single camp you possibly can. But now you're in such a rough situation on the side of G2, facing T1 with a bunch of this extra money that they've acquired. And Guma has been the rock for this team. Yeah. He has performed, even though this has been a rough tournament for T1, coming in, struggling in a couple of different areas. Guma has been key.
I think this is where at least there's a little bit of saving grace for G2, though, is the lack of vision for T1 on this bottom side. They've invested a lot up towards Baron, so they're going to have to push out mid to try and invest now into that bottom side. But it's going to be a case of, can you fight G2 as they're entering into River? Because that's where you can get so much value from a Faker Shockwave, a Keria ultimate, and just keep G2 out of that River.
Yeah, I think G2 need to keep on pressing in to get vision control of like half the map. If you get a quadrant controlled with vision, then you can make use of your LeBlanc poke, of your slippery Kha'Zix.
The risk always is if you're stepping in as the Kha'Zix, your Edge of Night is procced, and then the Glacial Prison immediately follows, and you're just shut out of the battle by T1. You can see Zeus hovering in the Tribush, looking to see if the Baron has been begun by G2, and now they started off. Going to be a 4v4 to kick us off. The TP is available. for both the mid laners. Zeus on the flank, as you say. Hansama opening up, Broken Blade going in with a Counter-Strike Keeper's verdict. But now T1 of the team, they're a little bit split. Face Call comes out, Steadfast Presence. Gumayusi with a whirling death, the hostile takeover coming in as Zeus jumps onto the back line, and they forgot about Zeus, but Zeus have not forgotten about Hansama. It's a double for Zeus, the god of thunder, here to smite G2.
The god of thunder, the god of the side lane, Zeus, he got the flank, he got onto Hansama, and now he can take the bottom tower while Faker was on the top side the entire time for that whole fight with Caps. Now he's calling the rest of the team over to the Baron. Zeus teleport, looks like it has a second.
Shockwave out by Faker, Caps able to dodge away from it. Yike is here as well as Faker's down to half HP. He has to jump away. The Baron sitting at 12,000 right now. Can they steal? Yike at half, Caps and Faker trading continuously. Ethereal chains don't connect as Gumayusi turns his eyes instead of from the big purple worm back towards Caps. Yike looking for the steal, has no flash.
BB's up in 3 though. T1 are committing early. They need to get this Baron before G2 come back out.
Mickey gets the ward in the pit. Control ward over the wall will spot them. Zeus there. Doesn't have the hostile takeover. Yike still no flash. Steadfast presence. Yike goes in, but it's way too early. And T1 collapse on him. Guma takes the kill. T1 take the Baron. And it's all coming up LCK in game 1.
T1 refuse to have the same series as last time. It is cool, it is calm, and it is collecting Barons for T1 in game number 1.
Yeah, they've got Baron and they've got the extra map control to use it. Let's take a look though. This fight had a moment for G2 when Mickey hit the Poppy ultimate, but then they chase up into the top side and it's a two-pronged engage. Keria's ultimate locks up 2 and leaves Hansama as food for Zeus.
And it's T1 who was able to clear all that vision in that area, getting that control over mid and then setting up for that play for Zeus. And I think that's where G2 now, you have to keep this Poppy ultimate for Zeus. He locks up Hansama way too well, but he's just not getting to play the game.
Zeus, Zeus, Zeus. Finals MVP of the world champion team. 3 items on Camille saying, nice matchup.
Those are 3 items ahead, or 3 levels ahead. Like, the guy is just decimating inside lanes.
And T1 have played so well around him. How many times do we say Oner is flanking Zeus, making sure that Broken Blade isn't in a bit of a tricky situation? Now T1, with this Red Bull Baron power play, have already got 3.5k off it and are looking for more. Zeus is going to answer BB's push in the bot lane. BB sitting at an item and a half, and Zeus is very willing to take that fight. Hexagon made him forward. Look at the precision and the protocol of sending BB back to the fountain. Zeus gets the solo.
You can't counter that strike. Zeus is hitting way too hard at the moment, and Zeus just destroying side lanes over and over. Just shuts down everything G2 want to do.
Oh, Zeus with the 3 completed items and Broken Blade over there, trying to build an IKEA set at home with all the little pieces. It is rough out there, and T1 know it. They're going to push forward with their advantage. Baron buff still on for another minute, so they'll get right up to those inhibitor turrets.
You see the desperation from G2 in the picture there as well. Yike flashing to try and land the void spikes, but the recalls had already come out from T1, so now Yike has no flash, and T1 can advance in 2 separate lanes. Oner shadowing Zeus down towards the bottom side. Zeus now going to join in. They'll see who answers the bot wave push. T1 adds 5 towards the mid. Caps locked up. He'll survive for now. The inhibitor tower will not have that same luxury, though, as T1 begin to raise G2's base to the ground. Zeus pushes in and backs away as soon as he realizes he doesn't have the reinforcements yet. Gumu and Keria move across. G2 looking for something. Mickey will land the knock into the wall, but it's only on the support. And Mickey is ticking to the ignite, and Mickey will go down. Keria takes the kill, and now in a 4v5, G2 have to look to defend.
G2 need to find some sort of desperate measure, but 4 versus 5, Zeus is the target.
We're past desperation now for G2. They're looking for the miraculous. But Zeus, the god of lightning, the god of thunder, the shockwave, reigns through G2, and the reverberations are felt all the way back in EU. T1 with a decimation of the LEC #1 seed in game 1.
That is a 6,000 individual gold lead for the top laner.